Yeah.
I like there's Salem, and then there's a place called Swampscott right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it's like, well, we're safe now. We're in Swampscott. No witch burnings here.
No, none. Well, there weren't any in Salem.
Just
either.
Swampscott.
They just hung people.
Oh yeah, they didn't burn anybody?
No, they
well, that's disappointing.
Hung everybody except one Giles Corey, who was pressed to death with stones.
Oh my god, pressed?
Yeah.
They didn't even throw, they like pressed them into him?
It was like he had a board put on top of him, and they wanted him to confess to being a witch, so they kept putting more stones on top of him.
Wow.
And he was a real cantankerous fella, so he just told them more weight.
More!
Yeah.
More!
Yeah, except like struggling, because at a certain point that shit crushes your organs, and like you're sort of alive but not able to really, we can't do anything for you at this point. Like, it's a brutal way to die. Yeah.
It's pretty hardcore.
It's incredibly hardcore.
Yeah.
It's metal.
Speaking of death.
Yeah.
Hey, Victoria.
Oh, hey, Chelsea.
You know what I can use right now?
What?
A Breath of Fresh movie.
Oh, me too.
Cool.
That's a movie I like to see.
Howdy. You're listening to A Breath of Fresh Movie, a weekly podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
And me, Chelsea Poe.
we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen before, and then we talk about it here with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about death, and this week's movie was...
Death Becomes Her.
And
What if I got it wrong just then? That would have been very embarrassing.
you just you would have to
just
say it
edit
over again,
Yeah.
and then you
We're not
cut it out.
live. That's right.
But we'd know. I would know that you did that.
But yeah, we've got the 1992 horror, comedy, fantasy. It's all kinds of things.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah. Death Becomes Her. When a fading actress learns of an immortality treatment, she sees it as a way to outdo her longtime rival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've got a great cast here with Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, Bruce Willis, and Isabella Rossellini.
So good.
Oh my God.
So fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're already talking about it. It was incredibly funny.
Oh, yeah. So is this a movie that you should try to go in blind? I feel like kind of, yeah, you should. If you haven't seen it already, maybe it's probably better. You'll still enjoy it. Like, I knew what the premise was. I already knew most of this movie before going in. I still enjoyed it. You know, make of that what you will. But I think that some of the discoveries are more fun as you go along.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, yeah, I don't think like you're going to be mad at us for ruining anything because it's...
Maybe actually it's okay kind of knowing.
I mean, I don't know.
I feel like it didn't take... I feel like almost maybe I would have been frustrated, like, because you can kind of see stuff that's coming, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, the movies... Yeah, there is an element of mystery to it. So I suppose, you know... I mean, it's like any movie's good. I mean,
sure.
I think the whole premise of our show is that it's always best to go in blind, you know, or fresh or something. But it's like Frank Costanza thing. I like to go in fresh. I don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm gonna turn this off.
I can't decide because there's a part of me that thinks nah, but then there's a part of me that's like no, I didn't. There were certain moments that I was like, oh, she's getting up because she took the immortality potion. Like it got me, you know. Like I was along for the ride from the get go.
Yeah.
And that's not to say like I don't want to say like I shut off my brain, but when I say I'm along for the ride, I stop asking questions.
Right.
I don't wonder about anything. I'm fully in it, you know. And this movie was so fun, and it pulled me into it right away. Now, the only part that I was like a little bit like was that sort of scene where Goldie Hawn is in her grotesque phase of being overweight and like eating ice cream,
sure.
And she's a cat
when she's
lady,
like a cat lady,
surrounded by filth and takeout containers, and she's just she's lost her mind as well. But like she's just.
Did you feel like it was like some sort of like punching down?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit, just because the very first shot.
This came out in 1992, by the way.
It did.
Yeah, context.
And, you know,
but still, I get what you mean.
The first shot is her bent over, and it's her ass, and it's like, oh, her ass is big.
It's
now.
like fat suit humor, you know. That's happening there. So if you're sensitive to that, be mindful. I just thought
it was a little shitty. However, Goldie Hawn really went for it. You know, and she looks grotesque.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to see her that way.
Yeah.
We're not used to seeing her that way. But I was a little like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But I gotta say though, this movie is like inherently satirizing like the beauty industry.
And we need to see like a stark contrast between this rock bottom versus the transformation.
Absolutely.
So there's a part of that like
it goes away
makes
quickly.
sense.
Yeah.
I think in light of the tone of the rest of the film, I can give that a pass.
Same, but I think because I wasn't through with the film yet, it was just like, oh no, like is this? But it quickly got erased because I thought the tone was so right. I mean, I've heard this said about Zemeckis, but it's like every frame has so much information or is so produced. That whole scene where Madeline goes to the beauty center in where I assume it's Beverly Hills, like my God, the receptionist uniform that's just like a thin black mesh shirt over a bra, and all the nurses have like plunging neck shirts and like their bras are exposed. It's like kind of a plastic surgeon's office vibe. There was that crazy shot where the door opens and it has a mirror on the back, and as it swings back to close, we can see into this room. Yeah. And there's like somebody getting like their blood changed out or something on this
just great attention to detail.
That's it, exactly. Yeah. The details. I mean, there's so many that like, I mean, and I'm not jumping in, but I have already watched this again because it's like I needed to. It's
a fun like breezy watch. Like it goes by quickly.
It does.
Yeah.
It's full of like Los Angeles and Hollywood is just like baked into it.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is the entire thing filmed there, but there are all these little references to, old stars and like this whole idea that, people who have died young faked their deaths because they also took this immortality serum, and there's this whole arrangement where you can't raise suspicion, so you're allowed to be really beautiful in the public eye for like 10 years, and then you have to hide yourself.
That's the deal.
The dark deal. And it's kind of a Frankenstein vibe, like that, in the way that this whole like Madeline is established as this like huge egomaniac who will do anything to be beautiful. So when she's given like this lead, the fact that she dismissed it at first, I'm like, nah, she's gonna come
because she drops it into the purse.
And I don't even care that I know that that's where it's going. It's like, it's great. I mean, but there's so many just also physical nonverbal things, like in that scene where that doctor's telling her about what turns out to be this spooky immortality thing. He shuts off the camera that's on inside the room. Like he just like, I don't know. And there's other nonverbal stuff. One of my favorite scenes was with the uncredited cameo with Sidney Pollack as the doctor.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
It's really fun.
And the way he's like, can I get a sip of that? Like talking to the husband with the flask. And I don't know, that was just a great scene because he's so matter of fact with it. And, like, does this hurt? No? Okay. All right. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt at all. He's like, the body horror of this movie, I didn't expect. I think that's something like, there's a lot of like, and I think that it works best in the sound design. There were a lot of moments that made me like really wince and cringe because I heard popping or shifting and, trying to move things back into place. Yeah. I don't know. There was like so much about this that it's like sort of a women's issue, but it's told through like a male gaze. I don't know if that's fair or accurate to say.
Well, I think it is because Robert Zemeckis made it. So I mean, quite literally a male gaze in that sense. But I also think like we're in the sweet spot in the Zemeckis filmmaking timeline.
Totally.
I think like between this and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like the balance of absurdity, but with broad committed comedy performances like that are feel real. I think we're like that these two movies are like definitely a high point
absolutely
for him, and the effects really sell it as well. We're not bogged down, we're not going into the CGI hellscape that will later come, especially from Robert Zemeckis himself.
Polar Express
and Pinocchio.
Right.
I think that this is a great reminder of what can be done when a simple story is just told to an 11 without overly relying on, I mean, you're absolutely abusing VFX artists.
Right. No, this had a real moon when we talked about how, and also, Under the Skin, this like preference for we're going to create something as physical. We're going to do as much practically as possible. And then the effects will enhance it. It'll take it to that next place. And I know Zemeckis is, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's not, to be honest, it freaked me out as a kid. Like, I think the shoe being put in that was too much.
There's some dark stuff.
In it. And it's a noir. It actually, that's actually what it is.
Yeah, it's a committed noir.
Yeah.
What makes the comedy work so well.
Right. And, great actors, and really strong performers. This movie also has incredibly strong performers. I mean, and it's this idea that, it was Industrial Light and Magic. They were really responsible for the digital effects here. And the work that was done in this movie laid the groundwork for Jurassic Park. So you don't get a Jurassic Park without this movie. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I guess doing visual effects on a flat surface, no problem. But doing something on a more organic surface, like something that looks like skin, something that looks like, it was like the first time human skin had been digitally created. They also said that they wanted to go for a more like Tex Avery cartoon style of violence. Yeah. Because they didn't want this to be gore and horror in that way. So getting plugged in the gut with a shotgun, it sends you flying across the room, and then you have this huge hole. And that hole, if there was anything I had seen before seeing this movie, it was, of course, the cover with the hole in her stomach and but also just, I think I saw a commercial for it on TV, and there's that line that Meryl Streep, like, I can see right through you. And I mean, it's literally all I knew about this movie. But man, it's really effective. It's like really, really effective in this way that I don't know, Zemeckis gets credit for taking what's possible and just pushing it just a little bit further. And just really trying to show what the technology can do. And I know Roger Rabbit was very painstaking, but they did it. They committed. They were like, gonna do this. It's really impressive. But you're right. I think that it's certainly gotten bloated since then. This is such a restrained use. Photoshop was like a new program, and so that was a tool that was used to make this look more realistic and more organic. Streep said this was the last time she would ever do anything with CGI. She appreciated the challenge and all that, but she said it was like just very tedious, and she described it like going to the dentist. Like it's like turn your head, do that, don't do that, do this, and apparently, like, one day her mom came to set while they were filming, and it was like one of the days that she had to wear this like blue hood over her head because we were still using blue screen. We weren't in green screen yet. And her mom just like, I don't get it. They pay you all this money. Why are they covering your face? Yeah. She was trying to explain it to her, and but I do think it's kind of interesting, given what you were saying about CGI and all that Meryl Streep got an early taste of it and was like, no more. Yeah. Never again.
And it was a mild depiction of it too.
Some of my favorite lines were, could you just not breathe? I'm sorry, but I really love that. I love that Madeline has a lover named Dakota. That was a good detail. And like, at least lie quickly. Yeah. That was another very laughable line. Isabella Rossellini's character, keep your ass handy. Yeah. So good. Just, can we stitch that like on a pillow? Yeah. Maybe that's what we should be selling. And I already mentioned the Sidney Pollack stuff, but I also think that the moment where, Bruce Willis, we haven't even mentioned, is fantastic in this. Like, he was doing Die Hard and things like that, but this proves like the guy's really a good actor. Yeah. Like, really funny comedically, and I don't know.
He understood the assignment, takes it to that Frankenstein territory, that obsessive.
It's alive. And he's a bit of a himbo. Yeah. He's very easily turned, one way or another. But I think the moment where they smash the vase over his head and he goes, what?
Yeah. Very fun.
Best response. I don't have any questions. I'm refusing to ask questions. Completely suspending all disbelief for this one. It was a lot of just big houses, like the inside of big houses. It was pretty smart in terms of sets and all that. And that scene where Meryl Streep's character is like driving in the rain. First of all, it's like rain in LA. Yeah. Come on. But that looks so much like a similar scene from The Bad and the Beautiful where Lana Turner is like having this emotional freak out behind the wheel, and it's really similar. And it's just, there were so many little moments like that and references that a history nerd like me, it was really speaking to me, and that's why I was like, oh, I want to like pause every frame because I feel like there's all these little things I'm missing. And I did see that Bruce Willis, when the title hadn't been settled on yet, he had 2 pitches. They're both awful. It's Death, baby.
I love that.
And My Man Death.
My Man Death.
But it's like, it's about the ladies, though.
I love them both.
You like them both.
It's Death, baby.
It's Death, baby. Thought that was
That's
great.
funny.
This was almost an episode for Tales from the Crypt. That would have been a tragedy, because this is way more fun.
Yeah.
Like, I can see how if you trimmed it down, sure. But this is too much fun. Like,
yeah.
that would have been a tragedy. And I love that this plot takes place. I mean, they tell you in filmmaking, have a short, compressed timeline. This movie begins in 1978 and ends in 2029.
Yeah.
Like, it's so expansive. And I think because of the immortality themes, it's like we needed to see them. It had a $55 million budget and it grossed 149 million grossed. Just mentioning that there was an alternate ending, I guess, in the original, where the himbo Ernest ends up like meeting a bartender and then they run off together, and that was played by Tracy Ullman. So, and I think she might even be in the trailer. There's a number of things that are in the trailer that never made it into the movie, which happens. But I think they did some sort of test screening. Audiences really hated it, and I think Zemeckis wanted a darker ending anyway. So it was like, oh, okay, great. You know, so we do this. This is also considered like a gay cult classic. Like, drag performers do these characters a lot. Yeah. It's fun. Goldie Hawn with those like blue eyes and she is just like demonic looking. I mean, I was like, God, that'd be a great Halloween costume. But I'm like, but how do you get the hole? Like, how do you make it look realistic? Yeah. You know? You gotta hire ILM. But somebody pointed out that these two are often performed because they're against the system. They're villains, but they have a lot of complexity, and they're fighting for beauty, which of course, perfect theme for like a drag, queen to do. But I don't know. It's funny how like last year around this time we did Elvira, and that was kind of also felt like a real like gay cult classic. And it's something about Halloween, right? It is the season for all the weirdos and all the freaks. And I don't know, this movie, it's not a Halloween movie, but it's such a great choice to watch at this time of year. Yeah. Like, I really loved this. It won Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Well deserved. I also want to mention, just because this is about aging and age, Meryl Streep was 43 during the filming. Han was 46. Bruce Willis was 36. So making him look old was not hard, but they really did a good job of like aging him up. He gets like liver spots and gray hair. I don't know. That was great. Isabella Rossellini was 39, which is why like when she's like, guess my age, she's like 38. And she's like, also, I think it's worth noting that Rossellini did use a body double. That wasn't her butt. So we don't need to feel bad about ourselves, ladies. Like, even Isabella Rossellini might have some dimples. We don't know, because she used a body double. And I mean, she looked great in the movie. There's no question. But that this movie, like, she's such a perfect choice for casting, because she is one of these, like, eternally beautiful women, and it's such a wink, like, she's so good.
Absolutely.
She had like a St. Vincent look in the haircut, and the just perfect, and very old Hollywood kind of, just so good. I love this so much. Anyway. Yeah. Did you find some cool reviews or reception? Because I found some old stuff.
I'll say this, Rotten Tomatoes, Tomatometer 54%, audience score 61%. So it's just barely rotten on Tomatometer and just barely fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which I find interesting.
Some people really hated this.
Yeah, mostly it looks like, may be wrong, straight white men. Well, a lot of the rotten reviews, I want to just note that a lot of the ones that are, I found that worth noting. Yes, here. Noted. Let's see. Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Chicago Reader. If there were something resembling genuine satire of human behavior beyond the simple pretext for fantasy special effects and relentless sadism, I might have found some of this funny. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. A lot of this sort of like overstuffed criticism of the movie from these dudes. And then Kate Young from 30 Flirting Film, positive review. The dizzy, desperate energy of the way she portrays Madeline Ashton is so unlike the staid regality of, say, her Julia Childs or Margaret Thatcher. I'm talking about Meryl Streep there.
Oh, okay.
Also, Jenny Kermode from I for Film. I cut it off when I took the picture, but it's a positive review. Okay. Its stars are easily able to keep pace with its big dramatic beats, and Zemeckis directs with the confidence essential to comedy. Death Becomes Her doesn't pull any punches. Hollywood deserved it, and so do you.
Yes.
4.5 out of 5. Avril Halley, so iconic. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's comical, actually, how like black and white it looks like. Predominantly the women's reviews are all fresh, and all the rotten reviews are dudes as far as the professional reviews go there.
Yeah.
That's very funny. I'm sure there's exceptions, but that's just from the literal first couple dozen you see.
I mean, it is part of why I was so delighted was it's like, oh, this is going to be female centered, you know, and although it's a male director, but I think if you don't think this is satirical, I guess you've never been to Los Angeles, because I don't know, this all felt like Meryl Streep. I think there was a concern at one point about like, oh, this character's so like the set we've got, this house is so big, and they said that she walked on set and like her ego filled the place, like, and so they were so smart to bring in these like really good performers. I don't think it would have worked otherwise.
It needs to be very broad and fully committed, very theatrical. Letterboxd, the reviews are a bit friendlier. I would say, let's see. Yeah, Willow, 4.5 stars, just wrote flaccid. Jay, 4 stars and a heart. This film is looking camp in the eye. Matt, 3.5 stars. The world needs more supernatural noirs that are also propulsive body horror comedies.
Yep.
Yeah, this is just
it's good stuff.
It's just a fun movie. You're either into it or not.
Yeah,
you know?
That does seem to be the thing.
There you go.
I didn't dig into reviews because I know that's your lookout. But I did know I heard Cecily and Ebert both gave it a thumbs down. So not that they were like the arbiters, but you know, in 1992 they were certainly like a voice that people listened to. I don't want to assume that it's like, oh, they just can't stand like to watch a female-centered story or something.
It's just like it's camp cult.
Yeah,
it's specifically that tone and flavor, and that's why you know John Waters movies were received the way they were then versus now versus over the span of time that they matured. And
right, he's become respectable now.
You know, and exactly,
his films are treated like art films,
right?
You know?
And like Rocky Horror is an obvious one. I think like
time has been kind to plenty of
I
people.
think Death Becomes Her is it's almost like a relic of a bygone era. Like we didn't know how good we had it. It feels like, even though a lot of these dudes' reviews are actually pretty recent timestamps. So you know, clearly there's a divide in like, I guess, appreciation or understanding of the of the value that this movie has. But it does make me nostalgic for a particular tone and flavor of film we really just don't see
so much anymore. I mean, it was funny. I was talking to Mike about this, and he said when he was a kid, you know, it was a movie he asked to have rented, you know, from Blockbuster, just because the cover would look so funny, and you know, it's just. But you know, even the fact that Madeline and I'm forgetting the other woman's name. Is it Helena or Helen? It's just Helen. Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't remember.
Well, they both take the potion, and you know, Ernest doesn't. And I know that there's kind of like a message about, you know, the real immortality being like, have a good family, and at the end as they show.
Just like Coco.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I enjoyed it. I think people maybe were overthinking it somewhat, and I'm not normally a person to be gaga over the effects, but they really were. I mean, the hole in the stomach, you know, the neck twist probably would be done better today, but everyone committed to those performances. I mean, Meryl Streep walking backwards in high heels through, you know what, I mean, there was something really funny about the way she's trying to like keep her dignity, and just and it's not necessarily because these women are kind of awful and fighting each other. I mean, that's a question I guess I had was, are they actually like, do either of them really care about Ernest, or, you know, like
no, of course not.
It's just
it's a competition between the two of them, and because
Helen has this like
They're like frenemies.
Yeah.
It's camp.
They've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And the whole issue is like, oh, you don't know her. She always takes my men. And then, you know, cut to like the wedding.
Right.
It was a sublime cut. I guess it was a question because I think one could look at this, right, as like, oh, it's just women fighting over a man. And it's like, it's kind of not about that. It's like,
yeah.
like I finally watched Feud and they're like, feuds aren't about hate. They're about pain, you know? And I kind of feel like that's a little bit what this is like. The two of them are more, I mean, by the end, right, they're together and still in this fighting fish relationship.
Yeah.
I'll paint your ass, you paint mine. Like,
yeah.
There was kind of a funny sort of like sisterhood. And once they were on the same page, it's so funny how the women empathize with each other. And they're like, and then they just turn on Ernest and it's like, oh, we'll take, you know, and they do, how can we exploit him for us now? And I kind of liked that, you know, as a twist. Again, we're used to people, I don't know, it meant that like that it didn't feel just like a cat fight that someone was like enjoying to watch, you know? And also like not a cat fight when you're like hitting each other with shovels. Evidently in one of the takes, accidentally, a shovel did clip Goldie Hawn's face. So she still has a scar, I guess. But she took a hit, a light one. I guess she was, you know, nothing. It didn't lead to any hurt feelings, I guess. But they did some stunt work themselves, you know. Actually, there were a number of like little stunts that I thought were kind of, they were small but sort of impressive. Like there was one moment where a car is coming up a driveway and it stops just short of her lying in the ground, and it's like, I'm not sure why they needed that, but I was like, well, that was Goldie though. Like she did her own stunt. Like that's cool. I like that all the power players in this, they're all women, and but like the pressure they're feeling, like again, Ernest doesn't take the potion because he's not put upon the way these women are. And although Madeline's in a particularly vain sort of industry, you know, the revenge of like, oh, I sold this book, and like, I don't know, the revenge dress of it, and the whole there were just like all these tropes. Like it just felt so like a little bit of She's All That, you know, and a little bit of, and of course these all came after, you know. I'm seeing it like a lot of I'm seeing a lot of references, but I'm also seeing a lot of movies that drew from this. I don't know. I have some information about Robert Zemeckis.
Great.
All right. Bob Zemeckis. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, grew up in the South Side, and he was born in 1952. His father was a Lithuanian-American named Alphonse, and his mother was an Italian-American named Rose. They were strict Roman Catholics, and they were also very working class, which meant there was really most of the time was spent trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Zemeckis said, like, there was no space in my life or in our house for, you know, music or theater, art. He said TV was really the only thing I had. And that, you know, he said he felt like TV saved his life because it was through TV that he learned that film schools were a thing, or, you know, he just like saw the world through his television. And I think that sort of experience came forward when he came into film school. For a little while, he was at Northern Illinois University, and then he transferred to USC. But he talked about how he met a friend and co-writer he'd worked with a lot, Bob Gale, and they were both like really attracted to each other's energy because I guess a lot of people in the film program were, you know, really interested in new wave and like deconstruction, experimental stuff. That's all great, you know. But the two of them were like, no, we like James Bond. Like we want to make a Hollywood movie. We want to make Hollywood movies, and, you know, and that, you know, is fine. But I guess he got a special designation, the Academy Award at USC. It's like the Student Academy Award. And it kind of, it got the attention of Steven Spielberg. And then there was also some work on the part of Zemeckis to kind of, you know, push his way in. But essentially Spielberg, I think, saw something of himself in this guy and essentially mentors him, executive produces some of his first films. And yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because like I tend to like that pretentious stuff, but I also can appreciate like why this point of view is valid though. And like why not everyone is up for what I'm up for.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a few films of his. There's so many. It's too many to name. His first film was in 1978, and it was called I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I guess it was about the Beatles didn't do well. I've never even heard of it, but I'm sort of curious because I used to be such a Beatles super fan. Like, how do I not know? Then he made directed a film called 1941, directed Used Cars. All three of these movies were kind of not really great at the box office, even though the scripts are really solid. And then finally, he gets to direct Romancing the Stone, and that's really what like finally gets him a hit and makes him kind of makes good, with the studio or whatever. Isn't that amazing how many chances you can get when you're friends with Spielberg? Anyway, then Back to the Future followed in 1985. Then in 1988, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, followed by Back to the Future 2 and 3 in 89, 90 respectively. Then Death Becomes Her. Forrest Gump, which I'm like, oh, right. I forgot about that one. Like Contact, Castaway, Polar Express, The Witches, and you mentioned Pinocchio, the most recent thing. His films have garnered 36 Academy Award nominations, 23 BAFTA nominations, and 20 Golden Globe nominations. His films have garnered 11 Academy Award wins, 3 BAFTAs, and 6 Golden Globes. So pretty busy. I mean, this guy makes like a movie a year for years, or every couple of years, and I appreciate that he's regarded as this innovator in special effects, and this movie's such a great example of that. But it's weird for me. Like I wouldn't have expected. I would have not predicted to come into this and really enjoy this, because this guy feels sort of like antithetical to what I feel like filmmaking, if I were going to be doing it, should be.
Right.
So it's maybe a good lesson for me. I don't know. Not sure. It's all about me learning lessons. I just want to mention a few other movies that were at the cinema at the same time. These were the top 5. Death Becomes Her opened at number 1. Good job. Then Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, Mo Money, A League of Their Own, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Those were the top 5 films. And then other films that were just out at the same time: Sister Act, Police Story 3, which was Super Cop, Unforgiven, and Patriot Games. So I think this is the best thing in theaters. Who's your best supporting player?
It's mostly just them. I guess Isabella Rossellini was really fun.
That was
she had fun with the humor, the camp of it.
Oh my God. So good. So good. Yeah. She was like a wink in a human person. Another villain in white with, not just her, but Meryl Streep. She was wearing a lot of white around. Oh, I learned that whole moment where after she takes the potion, where her ass and her breasts like start rising, I guess they had like some sort of a hydraulic or pneumatic, whatever, some kind of system that was supposed to work to push her breasts up, and of course it didn't work. So they basically got the dresser to just push them up, which, as far as practical effects go, that's about as manual as it gets. So that's a little intimate. I hope it was okay. Would you watch this again?
Yeah,
Definitely. I already have.
It's fun.
Okay. All right. This was a short one. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd at Fresh Movie Pod, or you can send us an email at abreathoffreshmovie@gmail.com. Buy t-shirts.
Yeah.
TeePublic. The link is in the show notes. Get yourself a shirt.